The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Happy Friday, folks.
Josh Shigala from the Standard.io,
Happy Saturday, folks.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Bitcoin isn't suitable as payment or investment, says the European Central Bank. Yes, the European Central Bank is back again, and they're letting you know that even though there's a Bitcoin ETF, 9 of them in fact, sponsored by various Wall Street companies such as BlackRock and others, that it doesn't matter. Your Bitcoin is still illegitimate. As it says here, Bitcoin has failed on the promise to be a global decentralized digital currency. Come on, give us a chance. And is still hardly used for legitimate transfers. The latest approval of an ETF doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin is not suitable as means of payment or as an investment, says Ulrich Blindsell and Jürgen Schaft. Dan Eve, what do you think about the incredible slam from the European Central Bank?
Well, it's definitely a defensive move because they've probably looked at the chart of the euro against Bitcoin and seen that the euro's lost like 99.99% of its value since Bitcoin came out. So they're running a bit scared at the moment, but they're still coming up with the classic. It's only used for money and nefarious activities. They haven't kind of been swung around yet by all the positivity that's coming on the environmental side of things. They didn't sort of comment on that specifically, but it's still just the same old trope, right? That Bitcoin's a bad thing. It's failed in its example, the case study in El Salvador, but that's just I think very much dividing people politically right now, like how things are going in El Salvador. The Bitcoin experiment also based on their general kind of political lines as well. So for people that are outside Bitcoin, so everyone's kind of idea of El Salvador is a bit tainted anyway because everything's kind of a bit what's the word, controversial. Everyone's saying nowadays. So the ECB just clutching at straws as usual.
Josh Shigala, just when you thought we were all respectable with all of Wall Street loving Bitcoin, the ECB comes in with a hit. What do you think about their latest slam?
Yeah, I mean their latest slam is fun. It's a fun little slam in the media, but the big slam, the big body slam, the big WWF mega, you know, slam off the ropes is basically these MiCA regulations, which will, um, yeah, the split Bitcoin. I feel could have the potential to split Bitcoin into three or even four sections, where you would have Bitcoin, which is, ClearNet, and other crypto. Then you'll have BlackRock, and their ETFs, where, oh, if you want to buy this asset, you can buy the assets. Just you can buy the ETF. There you go. Um, and if you want to actually use Bitcoin, well, you have to use a wallet that sends your KYC data in with every transaction to another wallet. This is an egregious move of megalomaniacal proportions. When we first of all, we could write a tax on their money, that their money is as slow as a bloody snail at a fucking snail's funeral. Like, and we're actually building a currency that actually works, not like their silly CBDCs. But it's absolutely insane what's happening, and I'm yeah, that's what I think the ECB is trying to do. This article is just a little taster for what's coming. the good thing is about these ETFs is that they are being run by very, very large corporations. So they are now invested in the success. Saying that, they're also invested in the success of themselves. So if they're happy to have an a Randian Atlas Shrugged style system where BlackRock uses the state to crush the rest of the market and force everyone into BlackRock's hands to buy and use Bitcoin only through them. And by the way, you can now send, if you have some BlackRock ETF, you can also send it on your BlackRock wallet because we already know who you are. And you know, so it's very frightening in that sense. And the last one would be, well, if you want to actually use crypto, you probably use something like Monero or something like that. But the problem with that is if you get caught within the European Union doing that, then you'll have problems. The thing is at the end of everything, Satoshi built Bitcoin to actually not give a crap about any of this. And so there will still be people that will use it as a way to transact outside of themselves, whether that's outside of the European Union or not. But yeah, just be careful, folks. Be careful. Be careful what you wish for.
I agree, Josh. I think Satoshi made the world's best currency, and while they might attempt to handicap it, that they'll always fail. It's a lot like this Vonnegut story that was made into a movie on HBO called Harrison Bergeron, and it talks about how everyone should be equal. So they take the famous ballet dancer and they put weights on her legs so that she can't dance beautifully. And I think if they try to do that to Bitcoin, we're back in Ayn Rand territory here, but Bitcoin will outlast it. Bitcoin as a separate network will continue, even if there's only one Bitcoin. It can be split up in a variety of ways. We can extend the 8 digits down further. But when I think of the ICB and their continued nonsense attacks, which now aren't just an attack on Bitcoin, it's an attack on BlackRock and everyone who works at the other 8 or 9 ETFs, because obviously they've done their due diligence, but they aren't as smart as the IMF. These are like the Japanese who are left over in the caves after World War II. They're still fighting a war. The war is largely over. Peace has been declared. Horrible bombs have been dropped. And they're still out there in those caves continuing to fight with their angry statements while the inflows to the ETFs continue to go up and the price continues to follow. And this is just getting to be Peter Schiff and other jokey Bitcoin critics that we've seen go through the years. But the important question is, Dan Eve, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week, predicting against the Bitcoin predictor ball, the source of all truth and knowledge in this universe?
I think we're going higher. Maybe 50. I'd like to see a 55K. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Josh Agala, higher or lower?
I think it will go sideways for another week. Consolidate over time rather than price.
Push, the worst of all answers. And now we'll shake the ball, which could cause bubbles. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Okay, see it. Signs point to yes. Signs point to yes. Second week in a row, the ball has been optimistic. And we've got more with issue 2. Bitcoin back above $50,000 a coin. What comes next? The Bitcoin market, coming back from a low of around 12 or 25, depending on where you want to mark it, has come back to $50,000. And that means that it's worth $1 trillion as a market again. As you guys know, if you have a $1 trillion market, it is meaningful. If you do not have a $1 trillion market, you are worthless. Now the rich and others can invest in Bitcoin once again because it is worth $1 trillion. Josh Shigala, what do you think about this big round number that is absolutely meaningless except to the people for which it means everything?
Yeah, it's a fun number for sure. But if we look at something like gold, it's sitting at 30 trillion. So we've got a bit way to go. I remember when we passed a gram of gold. It was like, yes, we passed a gram of gold. So these strange arbitrary sort of goals and road map uh, checkpoints. Yeah, it's cool. I think $1 trillion is actually quite significant. I mean, when you look at the global market, you can start to see where we are now. When I got in, I just would never have thought that we're here already, to be quite honest. And it's been what, 13 years or something. So it's phenomenal that this strange little software where you open up Bitcoin QT, which was the original name for the little bit of software that you ran, and these funny little bits of money where we were sending around hundreds of these things to each other and giving them away so people could test them out, would be equivalent to what like way more than most countries' central banks push around on a daily basis. Like it's phenomenal to me, actually, that we're here now, that this libertarian dream of having a state independent, free network and money would be available, where a technocratic gold would be possible and wouldn't be shut down is absolutely extraordinary. And for those that say, yeah, but Bitcoin is BlackRock coin, and yeah, well, we've got competition. Use BCH then. Use, I don't know, you fucking use BSV if you wish. It doesn't matter. The fact is, we've got independent money in whatever form you want. You've got Ethereum. There's so many versions, and that's all part of the decentralization. That's all part of it. So it doesn't matter, and that's the beautiful thing, is that you have the choice to go, yeah, I don't like that. That's great. Well, then use something else. The fact of the matter is, you don't have to now. Like when I was growing up, if I wanted to send somebody in the United States of America some money, then I would be forced to use a bank transfer. Now, I'm absolutely not forced. So it's beautiful. I love it. $1 trillion. We should celebrate this fun arbitrary number.
It is true, Josh. There's only a handful of companies that are worth more than $1 trillion. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, that level. Countries worth more than $1 trillion. And if you want to talk about a blast from the past, I saw a tweet today talking about, I'm going to say his name wrong, but Marnie Maddie, I believe, like the third contributor to Bitcoin, Satoshi, Hal Finney, and Marnie. And he was talking about sending around 182,000 Bitcoin as just a test, just something that you do on a Saturday, send them around for fun, see if it works. Dan, Eve, what do you think about Bitcoin back above 50K, the $1 trillion market?
Yeah, it's arbitrary, but it's like, as you know, as Josh said, it's another one of those milestones, right? That people like to see. It's like just a nice mental thing, like a hoop to get over, and it's still nothing. It's still just a drop in the ocean of even just the stocks, right? It was only, I mean, Nvidia just passed the $2 trillion marker. I think early today, right? It's back down just at 1.97. But Nvidia 2 trillion, Apple 2.8 trillion, Microsoft over 3 trillion. So it's not even, it's even just like a fifth of some of the the larger, like, normal market cap stocks, let alone actual currencies. So still a long way to go. But it's just crazy how, even like 10 years ago, you knew Bitcoin was going to be around, but the idea of just going, yeah, it's $50,000 is just a crazy concept even now to go, because you knew it was going to get that way, but you kind of wouldn't, you're almost unable to admit it in your head, like this whole sort of trip along the way. And every time a new all-time high hits, it's still nice. But it's a milestone that we're back over, right? It's been a long while. It's been since 2021 that Bitcoin was over 50K. and it's halfway laserized, right? So that's why it's such a big thing. So yeah, I'm happy to see the price this way, and we're gonna see a lot more action as the halvening kicks in. That's for sure, and
Yeah,
excitement.
it is funny, Dan. If you'd known back in the day that Bitcoin was worth 50K, you could have just told everybody, like, oh, just invest, just hold it till 50K.
Hmm.
It'll make it, no problem. And now everyone's like, oh, of course it did. But that's only because we can see it because of the hindsight. Yeah, it's an amazing thing that
Captain
it happened
Hindsight.
this fast. Yeah. Captain Hindsight. Moving on to issue 3, let's keep it going. Ethiopia to become the first African country to start Bitcoin mining. They've got a lot of excess electricity and apparently a lot of hydropower. What do you think about the future of Bitcoin mining in Ethiopia, Josh Shigala?
Well, when I was growing up, Ethiopia was always a very, very poor place with a lot of starvation, really shocking images. I remember growing up as a child with extraordinary images, and you know, it was always at the dinner table. Josh, you eat those lentils. The poor kids in Ethiopia don't have any lentils to eat or anything to eat, and it always left a bit of a a footprint on my understanding of even the whole of Africa. Because as a kid, you sort of think as Africa as this country almost, like you don't really have an idea that there are individual countries in Africa, and yeah, but if you look at the economics behind that, you know, Africa is still sorry, Ethiopia is still in debt to the World Bank from those days of around about like $13 billion, which is a lot of money for the nation. And that's just the World Bank, and about, I don't know, another few billion to the IMF. So I think if it was to hold some Bitcoin on the balance sheet, it would probably be a wonderful thing for it because it could release it from the shackles of of the World Bank. Um, yeah, I would definitely love to see Ethiopia um, be released from this debt, not through some sort of Bono orange glass wearing drop the debt stuff, but just, hey, we're strong enough people ourselves, which they are. They're extraordinarily strong people through the adversities they've suffered, to basically be at the stage now where they can start to mine Bitcoin and use some of the excess energy they have to pull themselves out of the debt um, responsibly and never go back there again. Yeah.
I'm just impressed with the resource distribution, the idea that there's excess hydropower in Ethiopia, and somehow a Bitcoin person gets over there and says, "Hey, let's mine this hydro. Let's take this extra energy and use it for Bitcoin." It's as if the whole world were a risk game for resources, and suddenly Bitcoin's available, and now the world is rebalancing according to this new invention. So it's really exciting, and it reminds me of a old George Carlin bit, something like, "Wherever there's a woman, we've got a man working on it." I think it's a Seinfeld bit, actually. But yeah, he might not be our best man, but he's there. And in the same way, wherever there's excess energy, Bitcoin mining just pops up and it's just there. And we've said before, it's like getting that golden egg, the goose that lays the golden egg. So, of course, everyone wants to mine in their country. And now it's actually happening. And I'm really excited for Africa and other countries like this who maybe haven't had these opportunities, who suddenly will get them, hopefully positive things because of Bitcoin mining. Dan, Eve, what do you think? They've got miners in Africa now and not underground.
Yeah, that's awesome, right? And it backs what we're saying that if Bitcoin mining is following where the cheap electricity is, and where's the cheap electricity? It's excess hydro, which is what this article is saying. So where you've got this, this excess of resources that's just spewing out, you might as well capture that and use it for something. And whilst we haven't got the best energy storage solutions for storing electricity, Bitcoin is the best outlet for that, to turn that excess energy into into money and then use that for the actual environment. So it's just amazing. And it's also, it's EIH that are actually doing it as well. So it's Ethiopia themselves. It's not, I mean, obviously there's the external investment, but it's not just a case of, someone swooping in and stealing the resources and that's it, like the sort of classic story of like, the mine situation or something like that. So this is good for the country. And if they're managing to hold some rather than just selling it as well, to the ETF holders, right? Then it means that they can stockpile some Bitcoin and escape, as Josh is saying, escape the shackles of the International Monetary Fund and all the other agencies. It was like, wasn't it Ethiopia as well, where that "Feed the World" song was about? It started off because
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So how they're turning it
Feed the
around
world.
now with Bitcoin as well, with such a cool piece of technology to be able to start really turning the country around and changing its monetary system as well. Hopefully, once they realize that the coin.
Yep.
It is impressive to see Bitcoin as an alternative to batteries, and especially as an alternative to that evil power killing machine. I had a link to it once. I think it costs $30,000 or more, and it's a power dampening machine. You send electricity to it, and it will basically kill the electricity if you have too much. But it's great that people now can use the electricity for their town, fill all the batteries they can, and when the batteries are full, mine some Bitcoin, make a little money back rather than just having that electricity go into a damper machine or become a problem. But let's keep moving. Let's go on to issue 4. We've got a lot of topics today.
Is that a joke? Sorry, just very quick. Is that a joke? An electricity dampening machine?
No, because of, we've talked about load balancing, grid balancing. When you have too much energy, you have to do something with it. You can't always use it. So there is a specific kind of machine, not a Bitcoin miner. I don't know the technical details. I would guess it'd be heavy, full of metal, and it grounds the energy. I'm not a scientist. No, don't go by my word, historian. But there is a power dampening machine. It's very expensive. And we found it when we were looking at all this hydro Bitcoin mining and stuff, with the obvious idea that mining Bitcoin, getting a little bit of money instead of just getting nothing and having to pay for the power dampening machine or whatever it's officially called. Let us know in the chat, in the comments, how you're an expert on power dampening machines and how they work. Or ask ChatGPT.
Effect here, Dunning-Kruger effect in full effect.
That's right. Everyone, they're going to be like, of course we're experts on that. Like, we can't believe you don't know about that. But we're moving on to issue 4. Reddit is having an IPO, and that means we get to look at their books. And what did we find? Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe even a little bit of Polygon, a layer 2 scaling network for Ethereum. They're all on Reddit's books, and that's because Reddit's going public in an IPO, and they want you to invest, despite the fact that Reddit, the website, was sold to Condé Nast, the massive Wired magazine publishing type company. They're now selling it again. They're selling it back to you. So 2 parts of this, Josh. What do you think about the Reddit IPO? And what about the idea that they secretly were holding some Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon?
I don't know if they were secretly doing it because it's. I remember reading many a headline that Reddit is going to, has employed some crypto people and they're looking at how to move crypto about and use it as tips and all this sort of thing. So I think they've always been very friendly to Bitcoin and to crypto as a whole. So it's good to see. And its IPO is really like a quirky meme that's getting framed into high art. And what I love about Reddit, what I really love about Reddit and 4chan, because usually it goes from 4chan to Reddit to the world, and is that you get things like GameStop, you get these sorts of things happening where people that just don't take anything seriously take on very serious topics, and so I'll be waiting to what the meme armies of the world do with this IPO. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, the other thing I'd like to ask the community is, would you buy this? Would you buy the IPO? Do you think it's worth something? Do you think that Reddit is going somewhere? Because for some reason, Reddit was very, very big when I was first, part of, when like 10 years ago, I was like right into it. I loved it. And then slowly moved, like I didn't spend much time on the Bitcoin talk forums. I'd rather use the Reddit for some reason. I think it's because the app, I was using Reddit as fun, and it was just easier to use than the forum on my phone. So yeah, I don't know. I have fond memories of it, especially the comments in all of these subreddits. I just love the fact that things just get hilarious very quickly. Um, but yeah, I don't actually know how Reddit makes money, so maybe I should read the IPO filing. Maybe it's just holding Bitcoin and Ethereum. Maybe that's how they make money. I'm not sure, but yeah, more companies. I would love to know how many companies are holding crypto on their balance sheet. It would be a fascinating little peek into the world.
It would be great, Josh, if Reddit was just a Bitcoin and Ethereum holding conspiracy, and that was their main plan. They're like, we get more money, we hold more Bitcoin, it makes more
Yeah,
money, so on and so
yeah,
forth. But
yeah,
no, much like you, I feel Reddit's a place I used to go. Like I used to
yeah,
hang out in Reddit, and I used to go to our Bitcoin, and I used to do
yeah,
all these things. And I wonder, I mean, I kind of want to buy the stock. You get into that ownership thing, but would it really go up? Are people really going to go there? Is it still a thing? It feels like a thing from the past, and also having an IPO feels like a bit of a thing from the past. Shouldn't they just have an ICO like Telegram or Signal or any of these other companies and just go to the open market of the world instead of the
yeah,
open market of the United States stock exchanges for United States people and other things like that? Although maybe you can buy them on Cash App, or maybe you can get things that represent the shares. I'm not
yeah,
sure, but Reddit's definitely had their history with crypto, so I'm not surprised to see it on their books. They've tried to make their own coin a few times and failed.
mm,
They've hired big crypto people and fired them. And they've sold multiple versions of their Reddit alien mascot Shmoo with different costumes and different colors and all those things
yeah,
as NFTs. So they should
yeah.
be pretty, above the board. I guess they need more money than that. They got to keep, the servers running. They got to feed the
Well,
monkey. I don't know
you
what it
know,
is, but they have all these. They previously had advertising and Reddit Gold as their monetization options that I'm aware of, Josh.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. And but if everyone would remember, Dig was basically the competitor to Reddit, and they even had the Dig effect, which was basically the way that Amazon sold their massive server infrastructure, because they would always bring up the Dig effect, saying if you got on the front page of Dig, your whole server would go down, which was true, because back before scalable server solutions, you had one shitty little server sitting somewhere, and as soon as you got any attention, it would just kill you. So the problem back then was you had to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of server architecture for that one time, that one day that you get the Dig effect happening to your service, and your service dies. So you need to constantly run. So what Amazon solved was this nice elastic stretchy thing where you could buy just a little server, and if Dig got you to the front page, you would scale up. And then it died because they had a shitty upgrade, and everyone moved over to Reddit. Because Reddit, even though it was slightly different, it was always Reddit versus Dig. And yeah, Reddit's still around.
Dig was awesome back in the day. I remember like having like 180 digs or something one time. And it's sad, Josh. The main thing I think about Reddit these days is those annoying messages that you get when you want to go to a Reddit and then it says, no, you have to do this in the app, or no, you're not old enough to see this Reddit. And I think of Reddit mainly as this gatekeeper that blocks me from content and annoys me, which is sad because I used to really like Reddit. Dan, Eve, we haven't heard from you yet. What do you think about Reddit, as well as the fact that they're holding on to some crypto?
Well, there's a VPN check now as well, I think. So if it doesn't like a VPN, you can't get to the information either. So yeah, I use it less and less, and yeah, it's really just obtrusive, that initial message, right? Going, do you want to use the Reddit app? Come on, use the Reddit app. And you just like give me the info. I needed like just the sentence after that box right there, and I've got to go through this separate process. But weren't they at one point that they were rumors that Redcoin, this was in 2014, right? That Redcoin was going to be the currency for Reddit. And they came back round in 2017 when John McAfee shilled Redcoin as well. And they were like, yeah, Redcoin's going to be the currency of Reddit, RDD. Which never obviously materialized. But it would seem logical that they would, adopt a cryptocurrency for their crediting system. Obviously, they could create their own token, which like Telegram are doing, but then they could also use, they have a real good opportunity to use Lightning, or even something that I'm quite surprised they haven't done yet. If they're holding like Ethereum, is they're obviously kind of into what Ethereum can do. So why not have kind of the NFT as avatars, the same thing that Twitter's doing, and open up kind of more crypto based integrations into Reddit and help shield their bags. But maybe it's finally becoming a company that's going to start making big money, right? It's like the early days of a lot of these apps, they amass this huge number of users, but really don't know how to wring the flannel out of all the revenue streams. Facebook and co eventually did do. So maybe they're reaching that stage now, right? They're like, look, we've got this huge massive users, but we need to start wringing out the cloth and eking value out of this great big potential gravy train. So maybe we'll see some good positive changes from Reddit, and it will come back to a platform that's really used for people as a good resource and discussion ground. That could be a good thing, because I could do with a return to Reddit.
I feel like we've hit the worst of all stages in a startup, the era of walled gardening, when all the old people, the early adopters, are all gone, and they're just like, find us as many customers as we can hold on to, and like Dan said, sell them something, get them the money. Josh, did you have more on this issue?
Yeah, like the thing is that a lot of these companies seem to go to the stock market as they're dying, and it's unfortunate. Or they're in their heyday, and then as soon as they hit the stock market, it starts dying. So the execs kind of know the future somehow, and they just want to get there, load up and sell. It's like a way of selling without selling, almost. I mean, they're selling to the public. We can see this, like for instance, Robinhood. Actually, I'm not sure if Robinhood is back up, but when they went, IPO, the whole thing was, oh no, they're back up. Oh no, they're not. By far not. We were reaching like $50, and now they're down at 14. So yeah, I'm not sure. It'll be very, very interesting to see if they can actually make some money. Maybe
I think this blends well into the exit question. Josh, you can go first. Will the Reddit IPO, will it succeed? Would you buy it? Yes or no?
Yeah, well, this was what I wanted to say. It was like, I would love to see the meme army just take Reddit and go and like that nostalgia of GameStop and just like push it. Yeah, we're gonna push it. But yeah, I don't know, with AI and stuff. And I think this was the main problem that Reddit had with AI, is that AI used Reddit to train, like OpenAI used vast amounts of Reddit data to train it. So now people, I don't know, like I need Reddit as much as a moose needs a hat stand. Like, it's just probably not needed.
Yes, but it'll be an interesting IPO. Dan, Eve, are you buying the Reddit IPO?
Oh no, I'll skip it and just and buy Bitcoin, or I'll donate it to a moose for a hat stand.
Now, you see, again, I don't have any logical reasons for this. Like Josh says, if they make money on advertising and Reddit Gold, that's another nice way of saying they don't make any money. And if Condé Nast, the magazine company, can't make any money with all these eyeballs over all these years, and now they're going to sell it to you on the open spot market, it's a pretty risky stock bet. I still kind of want to get maybe one as a collectible. I don't know how much they are, if it's like $100 or $30 or $5. But as far as like a money making stock, I think it's more like you buy it because it feels good and you want to own part of Reddit. maybe they let you vote or something. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but nothing they've done ever has. And again, just to be clear, it's not the original cool group of Reddit people like Aaron Swartz, who passed away, and other people. They sold Reddit to Condé Nast. This is Condé Nast doing an IPO of Reddit and probably going to make a lot of money in the background. But we got to keep moving here. Issue 5. Block says its Bitcoin bets boosted by the CashApp yielded $207 million in gains. The Jack Dorsey payment provider notched a 90% year-over-year increase in gross Bitcoin profit, driving up its stock in after-hours trading. And we don't have to say too much about this, but we have reached the point of the year, the point of the market where Bitcoin companies who stick with Bitcoin are celebrated for it. And all the articles that previously read, Jack loses all his money, Bukele loses all his money, are now saying all their money came back. So Dan, Eve, just really quick, what do you think about Cash App making a bunch of money off of Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's classic, isn't it? Right, they're laughed at when Bitcoin's dying, the price is dying, and then they're hailed as genius when the price is going up. But it's good that they are getting some of that positivity on the return, right? And it's not just all the doom and gloom. So yeah, they've done really good, right? And any company now that's holding Bitcoin is going to be tied to Bitcoin's price. So anyone who's publicly holding Bitcoin during a bull run, they're likely to to ride the wave too. And for good reason. I'm sure also it's another opportunity for a lot of companies to actually open up more payment avenues and to hook in more customers who don't want to use fiat. There's the stubborn Bitcoiners who just want to use their hard money to pay for something rather than just fiat money when the money's got to go out. So yeah, I think it's just another cool Bitcoin venture that's doing pretty good and riding the Bitcoin price wave.
I always look at these the same way. I'm like, I had this idea. If I had a big company like Jack and I could have put $100 million into Bitcoin, they'd write this article about me. And I shake my fist at the sky. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Cash App making money on that sweet Bitcoin?
Well, we're at the stage in societal economic issues where the only, every company is making a loss. We're at a high inflation, except the only companies that make money are holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet. It's kind of like, oh, wow, they're profitable. Oh, they've got Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Okay, right, yeah. So we'll see how, like, I'm really interested to see how many more hold Bitcoin. Yeah. Did they say in the article how much Bitcoin is actually being held? I didn't read the whole thing.
I think at one point they had about 8,000. They had a lot of Bitcoin and they bought them early. And of course, they've been selling them and reselling them to their customers through the Cash App.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. We need more solutions. I would like to see more Lightning Network stuff. It's happening, but what I'd actually like to see is more L2s for Bitcoin. More L2s. Come on, more L2s. All these companies should be working on L2s for Bitcoin. And just like on Ethereum, L2s are normal. Let's try to build another L2 because yeah, Lightning, I love it all. I love it. I love everything Ben's doing. I love all the people that are building on that, and it is really cool. But you need competition. You need as many people trying different things as possible. Don't put all your eggs in that one basket.
Hear, hear, the Lightning Network needs a friend. Let's move on to issue 6 where things get political. Okay, this is going to be our last article from Bitcoinist.com. Sadly, Bitcoinist was once a great and decent Bitcoin publication, but now what they do is they write these articles based on tweets. So I want to put a disclaimer out here that none of the people who are quoted in this article thought that they'd be taken seriously for their political opinions. They just put out some tweets. So it's not really their fault. But David Bailey, the publisher of Bitcoin Magazine, Tur Demeester, and others are running hardcore fear-based Bitcoin paranoia about Order 6102, In 1933, the Federal Reserve, being a gold-backed institution in the United States, needed more gold. So FDR signed Order 6102, which you shouldn't know unless you're a libertarian or a hardcore Bitcoin or maybe have a history degree. And they basically seized everyone's gold, and it's horrible, and it was awful, and it's a bit libertarian nightmare, and it happened. But it happened 100 years ago. There's no reason to believe it would happen again. There's no evidence to back this up. This is just complete paranoid fantasy theory to make people afraid. But Josh Shigala, will it happen again? Will they ban Bitcoin in the United States? And according to the thrust of this article, if it really is 6102, go house to house, knocking on the door, collecting people's Bitcoin like a libertarian boogeyman.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole thing behind Bitcoin was that, remember, they banned gold, and a lot of the paranoia in the gold industry was around that time. You know, it made a big mark on people's memory, and of people that specifically like self-sovereignty. And so it is understandable to have that paranoia, and you should have that paranoia. It's just that I don't, now that, you know, Bitcoin was designed to get around that paranoia. It was designed to be like, look, it's, yes, it's not anonymous, but it's pseudonymous. And it doesn't allow for that scenario to take place in mass. Obviously, they can make it illegal. Governments can do anything. They hold the hammer. But now, you know, this BlackRock thing is a two-tiered system. It could mean that BlackRock having this, that the state makes Bitcoin illegal apart from the BlackRock ETF. It could happen. So that is one take on it, but there's definitely no knocking door to door and taking it from you. It's just that they might just force Coinbase to be the place that looks for fresh ETF to buy, and custodial for all the ETFs. Not sure. I don't think it's unhealthy to bring it up and remind people that it is possible, you know, because without that thought, we could be running blindly into a trap. So yeah, just you know, I think it's important to have a little bit of skepticism and paranoia around these sorts of things.
I just think it's in the wrong time period. It's more Bitcoin 5 years ago. On the eve of the BlackRock ETF and the other 9 ETFs, you're going to now wave the flag that the government's going to ban Bitcoin when the SEC has just finally approved the spot ETFs. Now's when you want to bring us down. Now when you want to get all negative. I don't think it's a good look. I don't think it has any evidence to back it up at all. And again, let's remember the difference between Bitcoin and gold. Gold is heavy, takes up space, and you know, you can get a limited amount. Like if you want to put your life savings into gold into your house, it's going to take up a lot of space. It's really easy to seize. On the other hand, Bitcoin can be split into hundreds of keys, hidden all over the world, buried underneath your garage, under your friend's house, in a river, anywhere. There's all kinds of ways to hide your Bitcoin, which makes such a law where you would go house to house even more ridiculous, even more nonsensical. But it's fun, you know, maybe it's 100 years ago and history just keeps repeating. So the 1929 Yankees are going to win really good with Babe Ruth because it all repeats. It doesn't make sense to me, but maybe that's what they believe. Dan, Eve, what do you think? We've got some hardcore Bitcoin bans coming from the government all of a sudden based on no evidence.
Oh, it's, you know, it's the nice kind of drama route, right? To kind of stir things up and be like, they're gonna come for you, they're gonna come for your Bitcoin and pry it from your hands, like they're gonna pry the guns from people's hands, pry the gold from people's hands, and you know, I think we've moved on right a lot since then, and although you know, the government confiscated the gold, I don't think they, you know, they do it like now. It just, I can't see anything like that happening, not now. There's too much human rights for the government to step in on
Well,
something.
and remember after like the gold ETF, they confiscated all the gold, and after the diamond ETF, they confiscated all the diamonds, and after the spider ETF, they confiscated all the spiders. I mean, none of that happened though. None of that happened. So we don't have there's no
Yeah,
path.
so it's just a bit of drama, isn't it? So to make it sound like it always helps your fight, right? When when you're the potential of the other side is a lot more hardcore. You know, it makes you fight stronger when you know they can literally come and take the Bitcoin from you. Yeah, it's all part of the fun. It's not going to happen. So
They can never take our Bitcoin, but they can take our freedom. Moving on to issue 7. The first photos of SBF from the FTX scandal in prison have been released, but let's talk about them and see if they're any good at all. Here they are with a watermark that says Tiffany Fong right across his chest, Sam Bankman-Fried, and a fellow inmate named G Lock to the left with his photo there. Also did a small interview with Tiffany Fong, laughing and discussing Sam in jail, talking about how he'd lost some weight and gained a beard. So Dan, Eve, what do you think about this first behind the scenes from prison photo of SBF and the curious way that it got here with that wonderful, I don't want to say anything bad. I was going to say something. Person who likes attention very much and would sell things to get more attention. Tiffany Fong, Danny, you've got.
well, she's getting us the scoop. So kudos for getting us that really odd picture. And doesn't this? She interviewed that G Lock guy, and he calls Sam Bankman-Fried. He calls SBF his son, right? He calls him son. He's like my son or something like that.
He
So
definitely
imagine,
said that Sam didn't snitch, and
yeah.
that by prison standards that he was harder than Takashi 69. I'm not aware of his situation.
Well, I can just imagine now SBF trying to keep out of harm's way and calling G Lock daddy. He's like, "Come on, daddy, G Lock, protect me from the sisters." Or is that just Shawshank Redemption? But he looks like he's in his element, doesn't he? He looks like someone who knows how to trade fish, tins of fish. He's learning the ropes. He's got Daddy G Lock, and yeah, it looks like it's going pretty good for him. It's big running a big scam pays off.
It just looks sad. It looks like it could be Vitalik too. Josh Shigala, what do you think? SBF in jail. The first photo released by Tiffany Fong.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of reminds me of like the G lock, or could say um G spot, as they call him. No, he'd be like, Sam, you want to play doctors and nurses or mummies and daddies? And he said, oh, geez, doctors and nurses, that sounds like it could get scarier. Mummies and daddies? Yeah, all right. Well, come over. Who do you want to be, mummy or daddy? He said, I'd rather give it than take it. I'll be daddy. Well, come over here and suck mummy's cock. I think that's basically where it's heading. That no, with all jokes aside, what I don't take joy in looking at these sorts of photos. I think it's horrible the fact that Sam is the only one that gets punished
Mm.
through this whole scam when really he had a so-called regulated exchange. So where are all the regulators that screwed up and allowed what he did? Where are they? They should be standing in this line too. Where are all the people that allowed this to go through from the VCs that apparently did their due diligence? Where are the folks? There they are. See, the dogs agree. The dogs agree. But I feel like Sam has been scapegoated here a lot. Obviously, he deserves to be in prison for what he did, but there's a lot of other people that deserve to be, and all the attention is like Sam. What about all the other executives at that company that stole funds? So I do feel it's unfortunate that there aren't more people that have to serve some sort of justice for this egregious miscarriage. I really,
it's also unfortunate, Josh, we didn't get that second trial. Sam was also to be brought up for the political charges of violating campaign finance reform, donating directly, allegedly, to Republicans, donating to Democrats on the record. That was supposed to be a second trial. And for reasons I can't really understand, we all understand them, but they didn't have that trial. They said, well, we've already got Sam on 3 life sentences or whatever it was. What's 3 or 4 more? Despite the fact, like you said, Josh, if people are involved there, if they took money, if they violated, even, campaign finance reform is a law. There are laws.
That's right.
They should, be filled out.
And it's not just about bringing Sam down. It's about exposing that sort of leverage that money markets allow for pull on influence. So it's it should have been brought up, and it's such a shame. Yeah.
All right, we got one more story before we go into overtime. It's a short one, but I just want to bring this up because I think it's important for Bitcoin. Issue 8, Bitcoin ordinals may push fees above mining rewards in 2024. Yes, NFTs might save Bitcoin. Everyone always talks about what's going to happen when the block reward gets too small and the miners are not incentivized to mine. But here it is. Perhaps because of the fees generated by Bitcoin ordinals, aka NFTs, they might make money for the miners. Renting out the block space like it's a profitable and useful commodity might actually save the Bitcoin network long term. Dan, Eve, what do you think about ordinals on the network and the idea that their fees could make up for the ever decreasing block reward?
Well, I mean, it definitely like reignites that debate, right? About will the miners, when when the block reward is what's this? I've got a chart in front of me. I've just texted you if you want to bring it up in the share the screen, right? So this is the halvening chart. So what's the in 2036? There's going to be 0.39 Bitcoin per block. That's a really low amount, right? That's 2036. By 2048, it's going to be 0.04 Bitcoin a block as the halvening reward. So obviously, the fees have got to account. They've got to be enough to cover the security. But I've got a question, right? So when it gets so low, I know there's a problem right now that you can't even pay the fee, right, to move some Bitcoin. So if you've got a low amount of Satoshis trying to sweep it, you've got to wait for the perfect time. But what happens when the block reward goes down to, I don't know, in the year 2080, when the block reward is just 19,000 sats, but it costs more than that to actually move those sats? What's going to work then?
We don't have any concrete solutions yet, but people say at that point, perhaps a company like Amazon will be so dependent on Bitcoin working for money that they'll want to mine it, even if there's not a great reward. Or, and again, this is going to horrify the anti-government libertarian type people, maybe a government will come in and mine Bitcoin as a public good, as something that's not necessarily done for profit, but is done for the good of keeping the network up. Because society would be worse off without the Bitcoin network. But again, this is all 2080 and beyond, or 2120, whatever it is. Josh Scull, what do you think about the end of the mining reward?
It's always, every time the halvening comes up, this is always the FUD that gets pulled out, this sorts of thing. The funny thing is, I'm thinking back at like 2017 all the way back to I don't know, 2013 or so, 2014. It was always like, even on colored coins and stuff, it was always like these meetups and this wacky artists would come and say, man, we should just put art on the blockchain. And you say, just what are you talking about? Just shut up, man. Like I can't hear it anymore. There's no art on the blockchain. What's the point? What are you talking about? And now we're talking about art on the blockchain might save Bitcoin. It's hilarious. I love it. And these artists, they were right, man. Holy moly, NFTs. Who would have thought? Apart from being, who would have thought it was the killer app for NFTs? I really would have thought it was going to be keys to a house, so you can send your key to somebody if you're Airbnb, and then they could send it back, or whatever else, concert tickets, all these sorts of things. They've all been tried. It's never taken off. What did take off? Pictures of monkeys and penguins and.
So
I think in a lot of ways, it's about the ease of access that the artists now, with the systems they have, can make their own NFTs. Whereas if you were going to make your own concert tickets or your own keys for your door, that would be much harder. Whereas the artists themselves can directly interface because the technology's gotten easy enough. So that kind of thing.
Yeah. Spot on. The ability to go directly to your customer. But one thing I wish it did more of was actually songs. I wish NFTs I wish the musicians got more into the NFTs rather than just images. It's been tried as well, but somehow images just were the thing. It's also would be awesome to have a song as an NFT, and there's minted 300,000 of them, and that's all that they'll ever be. I don't know. It'd be cool.
We've definitely been there before. Adam Levine had an early project with NFTs and songs, but we'll have to see how it
Adam
turns out in
B.
the
Levine
future.
or Adam Levine?
Adam B. Levine from Let's Talk Bitcoin. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But we're moving on to the next issues, the far too political issues. Issue number 9, I think. El Salvador's Bukele tells U.S. conservatives to put up a fight. So this is the unfortunate part of teaming up with a dictator, is that occasionally he'll go to the United States and address the CPAC conference. Bukele warned the conservatives, and again, we're talking about paranoid people looking for more paranoia, about dark forces that were trying to control the U.S. and corrupt judges, despite the fact that Trump appointed most of the recent judges. He also called out global elites and asked the American people to rise up, presumably against their democratic government, and to replace it with a more totalitarian government. As we've talked about before, in El Salvador, the president arrested 75,000 people without trials, without due process, and ended gang violence. As it says here, Amnesty International said that it was the gradual replacement of gang violence with state violence. Bukele then violated the Constitution again, asking for a second term, which he was allowed, provided he stands down in the period before the second term. So that's a pretty hilarious workaround to the law. He also took the Supreme Court by force, bringing soldiers onto the floor and taking over the court. But now he's here in the U.S. spreading the good word to the U.S. people. So, Dan, Eve, what do you think about Bukele? Suddenly very right-wing political, here to save us from having to choose our own leaders.
Well, I'm more interested in the Bitcoin experiment that's going on there than the overall politics, because he's cleaned up the crime, right? And obviously there's what they're saying is that murders are down, but a lot of innocent people have gone to jail. Then on the flip side, there's a lot of people that probably been affected by murder in El Salvador who are like, yeah, well, if they're on the flip side, they're like, some extra people have gone to jail, but on the flip side, there's less murders, right? So I don't know. It's a hard one, and obviously, I haven't really read much into this dictatorship stuff. I'm just here. I'm here for the Bitcoin.
I agree. I wish it was just a less of a political experiment with the Bitcoin. And everything's always okay until you're the person wrongly put into prison, or your brother or your cousin or someone that you know. For a while, it works out, these kind of systems. But eventually, the problem becomes that it turns on everyone. It turns on the people that supported it and put it in power. One of the first people killed by Hitler was the original SA, which were killed by the SS. So even your own supporters end up murdered. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the dictator of El Salvador visiting America and telling the conservatives to rise up against the freedom of democracy?
Well, I haven't listened to his original speech, so I don't trust the BBC to report something properly. Yeah, the thing is, you know, it's good that different countries have different systems so that they can test it out, but people of their own country should decide who their leaders are, and if it's bad, they should fix it in whatever way they can. I don't know, like, you know, people can say, and point fingers, and they shouldn't have a dictator. I don't know. It's El Salvador's problem. And El Salvador has been one of the most dangerous countries in the world. And it's getting fixed up. And if I was living there, I'd probably be happier right now if he did. I'm not even there on the boots. I've no friends that have gone there and say it's way better now. They've obviously got a vested interest because they're Bitcoiners, and they like Bukele because his Bitcoin stance. But you know, the beautiful thing is competition is king. So what you want to first do is clean up a country and make sure there's no crime, get property rights into action properly so that you can make long-term decisions for your family and build wealth. And then you need to figure out how to have a sustainable future for your local geographical area. If Bukele's a free man, he can travel around, he can give his opinion, and it is what it is. But and because he's a leader of a country, then he's going to speak at leader type places. One thing is that I'd like to maybe remind the audience that years ago in the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, politics was this thing that some people were right into, and there wasn't so much weight put on it. You have more control over your family and your work than you do politics. Some people get so overheated with it. It's great to talk about politics. It's definitely good to be involved a little bit, but day to day, what has effect on your life is the decisions you make with your career, the decisions you make with your business, the decisions you make with your family, how you bring up your children. These are the very, very, very key important things that you can make an actual difference with. And a lot of the time, politics just divides. It just divides and conquers from each other. And so I don't know. That's my rant.
I agree, Josh. It's definitely important to be grateful and enjoy your situation and do the best to help the people near you because that is where you can have effect. Dan, do you have more on this? Go ahead.
No, just I agree. Yeah, with everything you said, Josh.
But that said, I want to push back at Josh a little bit because I was going to close with this Ralph Nader quote where he said, the lesson of politics is if you're not turned on to politics, politics will turn on you. But we've got more politics today. It's just a heavy show. We're going to just mainly talk about his statement. We're going to try to stay off everything else about him, including his many, many criminal trials and so forth. Trump, Bitcoin has taken on a life of its own. Will probably need some regulation. But let's go straight to the quote. Donald Trump, former president of the United States, said, Bitcoin has taken on a life of its own. You probably have to do some regulation, but many people are embracing it. More and more, I'm seeing people wanting to pay Bitcoin. I can live with it one way or the other. Dan, Eve, what do you think about the former president changing his mind on Bitcoin after, of course, selling millions of dollars in NFTs and just kind of being wishy-washy in general?
Would if Trump said that he'd make Bitcoin the U.S. national currency, would you vote for him? And Biden said that he would ban Bitcoin. Would you vote for Trump over Biden?
It's still about freedom versus not freedom. So even if Biden, and again, I love it when they ban Bitcoin and they attack it because I think it's unbannable and I think that it survives. But yeah, no, it's a tough question.
Well, I mean, it's Trump doesn't speak about Bitcoin actually much, so that little speech then that's not really wasn't negative, it wasn't positive, it was actually kind of quite a neutral statement, and which is unlike Trump, who makes kind of waffly, crazy statements. So that's actually quite sensible for him to sensible statement for him to make that isn't pulling in craziness of the headlines, like going, oh, but they use it for drugs and prostitution or something, something nuts like that. So at least it was kind of a middle of the line kind of quote from Orange Man.
I agree, Dan. The last line is just especially wishy washy. He just says, I can live with it one way or the other. So it's not like we're going to be, oh, Trump's a big Bitcoin booster. He's on our side, all that kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's just more, he's mildly changed his opinion on it. And of course, a former president, even this one, talking about Bitcoin is kind of newsworthy for our show. Josh Shigala, what do you think about his mild endorsement of Bitcoin?
I don't know, you always get madder than a mosquito in a mannequin factory here on these sorts of topics. But it's really it's a good thing. At least he's not. A lot of the time, so money. Trump, for my mind, on all things, I don't see him as a racist guy. I know that's what the media like to say. I see that he does see one color, and that's green, and so the US dollar is his obsession. He's like that. He's that sort of narcissistic focus on green, and and so for him to say, well, there might be another color, orange. I mean, he does love the color orange, as Dan stated. He loves to paint himself orange on a daily basis. Uh, but yeah, I think it's good. I think it's great that he's saying it is what it is. It's the free market, that it's softening up these people that are obsessed. Because I have heard him say in the past that we need to make sure that the US dollar isn't undermined, because that's the most important thing. And the US dollar has been undermined with the sanctions that have been pushed against Russia, and that's really hurt the dollar in a way. On a positive side, crypto has helped the dollar because the stablecoin market has really controlled the narrative of what Bitcoin's priced in globally. It doesn't matter what country you live in. If you use crypto, your portfolio is in the US dollar, which is a really fascinating network effect. Because we've launched a euro stablecoin, the standard, backed by thousands of people locking up assets into smart contracts where they don't lose where they don't give over the private keys. But this the euro doesn't get used as much anywhere. Whether you look at the big players like Tether, they've got Tether Euro, the volume is way, way, way lower than US dollar. So it's fascinating to see this as a network effect, and maybe it's what actually saves the dollar, is because the use case and people, the network effect of what people use things for. For instance, if I price milk in Australian dollars, I know a good deal when I see it. I walk down the aisle, I go, milk's now $1.30. Oh, that's a good deal. Whereas if it's priced in like sats, for instance, I don't know, is that a good deal? I have to get the calculator out. It just makes a lot of friction. Whereas I'm already starting to get a feel of dollars in my life, purely because everyone uses Bitcoin as against dollars. So it's a fascinating thing, the psychology of pricing things in dollars. But yeah, it's a little bit off the topic. But yeah, interesting.
Well, I'm not gonna say he's a racist, but I just want to quote his speech when he started his campaign. He called Mexican people rapists and thieves, and then historically they have this problem where they've
Well, they
been
didn't.
under
Come on.
investing. He did.
If you
They're
listen to the whole
historic.
thing, he's
Those are the
talking
words
about
he
the
used.
people, the gangs
Historically,
coming
he's had this
over.
problem where they won't rent to black people in the 1970s, and it's just kind of
Well,
really
yeah.
heavily documented. And there's just a
Yeah.
lot of evidence about not renting to people.
But if you also look
So-
back, he wasn't called a racist. He wasn't called a racist until he ran against Hillary, and then suddenly he
No,
wasn't
these
racist.
trials. No, this
He was
is
on, like,
going on
he was
since
on
the
the-
1970s.
Yeah, that's
So if you see right here, a discrimination probe in the 1970s. So that was a long time before he ran for president. His father was also accused of not renting to people.
It's one incident,
which
like
is,
50 years
racist.
ago. In one incident 50
It's just
years.
a little bad. It's just a little bad. But let's keep moving. We're running out of time. Dan, Eve, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
I predict Trump's going to be America's 46th. I'm joking.
It'll be 47th anyway, but yeah.
Is it 47?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it depends, doesn't it? Oh,
Yeah.
All right, Josh Shigala, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Yeah, next week we'll have a new landing page for the Standard. That's the story of the week. We're working hard for that. And we'll be launching our yield accounts where you don't need to give up any private keys and you start to basically be able to buy Bitcoin at 9.91 under market value.
what?
But yeah, you borrow for 0% interest using the Standard without giving up your private keys. And you can start to lock up TST and EUROS into these yield accounts, and all the fees generated through people trading and swapping get into a pool, and you can buy them up for almost 10% under spot, under market value. So it's a great way of DCAing in and maybe even arbitraging. So yeah, all of this stuff's coming. It's so exciting. We've had basically the last month and a half, 250 plus white hat hackers trying to smash our contracts. All these auditors basically trying to break us. And while they found some little things here and there, the main things they found is ways to like optimize the smart contract and stuff. But no one's found a way to basically break in. So we're now, as watertight as can be, and super excited. We've been working really, really hard. The whole team has. In releasing this. So next week's a big release. Will be the repegging the EUROS, so that's back, relaunching the smart contracts, trading's back within the contracts. These yields are back, these yield accounts. So yeah, interesting time. Obviously, if you're not into crypto very much, don't do anything on that. If you're just getting into Bitcoin, just buy some Bitcoin. Hold on to that. But if you're more advanced and you like to, have fun with this sort of thing and experiment, we're building some really, really interesting technology. So it'd be great to have you over and join the community over at thestandard.io.
Nice.
Very cool, Josh. Sounds like some good stuff. And Dan, do you have a prediction or a story of the week before I go to mine?
I don't know. It's been a boring week. So no pigeons.
No pigeons to report. My story of the week's pretty exciting. Curio Cards, the proto NFT project that I and Travis and Rhett created in 2017, has been added to a Taschen book. Taschen is this big German company. They make very large art books, and they're making a book called On NFTs, and they've included Curio Cards. So it's really exciting to be included in this book. I talked about it a little on Twitter. I bought a big Taschen book about Stanley Kubrick. It had a piece of film from Kubrick's own personal copy of 2001, A Space Odyssey inside. So they do a lot of kind of large scale books like this. I got a fun book about Kubrick's Napoleon project that was never filmed. And I got to tour one of their bookstores. This is the Muhammad Ali book. It's incredibly large. I think they're making some large ones for the NFT project as well. So just a very cool company making some very cool, and as you can see here, very large books. So it's
and the joke is Taschen means pocket.
Pocket. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's funny because I don't think these will fit anywhere. So shout out to Taschen, shout out to Curio Cards. It's just great to be included and to have our own little small place in NFT history. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Sorry we had to get political there for a couple of stories, and I'm kind of losing my voice too, so there's probably comments on that. So thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, bye.